Hello, everybody. Welcome to the official podcast of the number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system on the web. This is the SoxProspects.com podcast. It's episode number, I wrote 120. I think it's supposed to be 129. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com, coming to you from the new and improved Sox Prospects Mid-Atlantic offices here in our nation's capital. It's late, in case you can't tell. It's past my bedtime on a Tuesday night. I've had a long, weird day, and making it even longer and weirder, joining me as always is our director of scouting and official basketball GM of SoxProspects.com, Ian Kundle. Ian.
Yeah, how you doing? That makes two of us. Today has been a weird day. It's maybe something in the water. I don't know what it is.
I don't know, man. Just to sum it up for me, I tried to get a new parking pass at work, and while I was trying to talk to the parking station attendant, she fell backwards, and I'm pretty sure either dislocated or broke her hip based on the screams of pain for the next 30 minutes. Had a mediation in a landlord-tenant case I'm doing that went very poorly, not for anything I did. And then had like a 3.5 hour long client meeting, and then got home and went to meet a neighbor's cat that we were going to be cat sitting. So yeah, and now I'm on this with you, making it even weirder. It's been a weird day.
Yeah, that's fun. I sold a car.
Okay.
I did a basketball draft, and
of real people, not of fantasy.
Of real people, and it's been busy.
Yeah.
And I'm packing because I'm going to Dallas on Friday, so I'm trying to get ahead on stuff for that.
Gotcha.
So,
by the way, speaking of Texas, if anybody listening is from or has family in the Houston area, thoughts and prayers out to all of you. Just seeing what's going on down there is kind of heartbreaking, man. But
yeah, it's a tough situation. But I mean, there have been some really heartwarming images. You know, all the people helping out down there with the boats, and I think there was one like the Cajun Army coming in with all their boats, just a line of trucks all pulling boats to go get people out. And so yeah, just our thoughts are with everyone down there, and you know, we're thinking about you
for sure. For sure. Well, before we get to the news and the topics of the day and your emails, so quick housekeeping. I want to mention, still going on, the Sox Prospects Annual Drive. We need your help to keep our site up and running. Last check, we are, I think, past the 7,000 mark, Ian, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
Need your help to keep the momentum going, everybody. Two ways to support. One is to go to SoxProspects.com/donate.htm. You can make a one-time gift there using, it's through PayPal, but you don't have to have PayPal. We really need your help. Please, whatever amount you can do. Hey, I'll say it right now, the higher the better. But we appreciate your support there. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/SoxProspects. We recently reset our goal on there. We are aiming for $100, and we are stuck at $96 per episode. So if you go on there, you can donate a certain amount per episode, $1, $2, $5, or the 3 levels of rewards that we have, but whatever you want to do. You donate a certain amount per episode. And we've got some, I think we've got some new perks that we're going to roll out in a little bit here. Maybe for next year, frankly, would be the way to do it. And we want to thank, as always, our $5 level patrons. This is admittedly the list from last time I checked before the last podcast, because it's not letting me check our current patron list on Patreon. But as always, we want to thank the $5 level contributors: Sox Signatures, Cody Pimentel, Lendell Martin, Kirby Miller, Gerardo Ian Tosca, Kyle Costigan, Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Tim Ware, Scott Klebe, Hurricanes 1, Bill Stanton, and Deb Kendall. Thank you to all of them and to all of our contributors. You can also support the podcast by subscribing, rating, and reviewing. We're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and YouTube. Subscribe so you know when a new episode is up, and give us a 4 or 5-star rating and a nice review to help us get in some new ears. As I mentioned, we're going to be hitting your emails today. We love getting those, so send them in to podcast@SoxProspects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. Follow the site's main Twitter, @SoxProspects. I'm at SP Chris Hatfield. Ian is at Ian Cundall, IANCUNDALL. And make sure you're checking the news page at news.soxprospects.com. And as well, make sure you are checking out the Sox Prospects YouTube page. You can find that it is at, Sox
Prospects Video.
Sox Prospects Video on YouTube. So, Matt, make sure you check that out. We've got all kinds of good stuff up there.
And there should be some more going up, probably during the off season, because it's just tough to have time to go to games, write articles, and get the videos uploaded and edited. So I'm thinking during the off season, I'll try to put some more stuff up there, maybe once a week or something.
Nice. I like it. Keep it going all year round.
That's where we're going to try that, just as a little preview. I think that's kind of the goal. One of the goals for this off season is to have some stuff. So
yeah,
hopefully you'll stick around all off season.
Yep, we're working on some podcast episodes for the off season as well. So the off season, hopefully the podcast isn't going to drop away like we kind of have the past few off seasons.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about that you can do in the off season. So I like what we've discussed. Throwing back
and forth. The more historical episodes too. We get some questions sometimes about topics that are really just not things we can cover in a quick session. Exactly. So kind of a longer form explanation. So for example, one that we get is kind of examining guys who've been traded in past deals or aren't with the system anymore, checking in on them.
Past draft classes, I know, is one I've gotten a few times.
Yep. So those are definitely interesting topics. It's just they're not really topics we can cover within the context of like a 5-minute, podcast question. And when they're kind of longer 15-minute segments, we got to kind of save them for when we have time. And during the season, there's not a lot of time. So let's hit some news, Ian, and kind of the big one that came out today. The Arizona Fall League rosters have been announced. The Red Sox have 7 guys announced going to Arizona. I want to pat myself on the back for a month ago nailing 5 of the 7. And the 2 I didn't get, I'm okay with not getting, frankly.
Those 2 are very interesting.
It's a weird class.
It is.
Let's just go one by one, Ian. We'll start at the top of the Sox prospects rankings, at least in terms of the guys going. The current number 3 prospect in the system, Michael Chavis, who to me was kind of obvious to go to the Arizona Fall League based on the amount of time he missed during the year, and for another reason that's become relevant in the reporting today when the rosters came out. I believe it was Alex Spear who reported that Michael Chavis is going to be playing both third base and first base in Arizona.
Yeah, which is interesting considering it's a weird fit. I maintain that, but if they like him and they think that he's a potential everyday player for them, I don't know. I guess it isn't really another choice, to use my English there. You've got left field. The outfield is filled up with cost control players who they're not going to be getting rid of anytime soon. Pedroia is locked in long term at second base for right or wrong. You've got Bogarts at short for the next year at least, and then you've got Devers.
Not that Chavis is going to short.
No. And then you've got Devers at third base. So The only position where they don't have someone next year and for the foreseeable future of the positions Devers can play is first base. So
yeah, but
Chavis. Sorry.
Yeah, but even still, to me, it's not like Chavis is going to be your opening day first baseman.
No, I mean, I think it serves 2 purposes, though. It tells them whether or not he can do it, which is something they do need to know. And then you're also AFL's prime scouting season, so you're giving other teams a look at him there. And if they like what they see there, because obviously I know there are teams that probably don't think he can stick at third base long term.
Yep.
So you're exposing him to another position there, and other teams will get a look. So I think it serves a twofold purpose for that reason.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. He has kind of tailed off as of late. He's in a little bit of a slump right now, and there's a question about whether he's maybe getting a little tired. I kind of have the question about whether he's maybe slipping back into some of the. He's been pull heavy all year, but to me, there's kind of a difference between pull heavy and pull happy.
Yeah.
In the sense of, are you trying to pull the ball and destroy it every time up? And I just kind of wonder if he's slipping back into that a little bit. So we'll see how he does in Arizona.
He's also on the tired thing. He only had 305 at bats last season, and he's already over 450 this season. So he's at 460 right now. No, he's actually exactly at 450. I'm probably not including tonight. Mm-hmm. So, and that's a career high. So I could see tired. Fatigue definitely playing a part.
For sure.
But, yeah.
For sure. Also joining him in the infield will be Chad De La Guerra and Josh Tobias, two of his teammates currently on the Portland Sea Dogs roster, Ian, and also two guys who I thought were probably headed to Arizona, frankly. De La Guerra really in the midst of having something of a breakout season. Some question of whether he can handle the shortstop position. May as well get a look at him out there, see if he's able to keep up the hitting. He's also kind of cooled off recently. And Tobias, a guy who, started hot in Salem and has been a little more challenged by Portland. He'll probably return there to start next season, as will De La Guerra probably, but...
And Chavis, I would assume also.
Chavis probably as well, at least to start the year. Though Chavis I could see starting in Pawtucket. Earning his way. I could see Chavis earning his way to Pawtucket with a good spring, whereas I don't know that I see Tobias or De La Guerra doing that. Maybe they could, but... Tobias'
season numbers in Portland actually aren't that bad. He's hitting 272, 326, 351, so there's no power, but the average is... The contact skills are there. Mm-hmm. But he's just a weird profile. I mean, you've seen him. He doesn't look like a second baseman. It's like a really weird body shape. And...
Yeah, but it's also... It's not clear where else he would play.
That's the problem, because he's not a great defender. But he doesn't run, doesn't hit for power, doesn't walk, so he just kind of makes contact. And so it's a little bit of a strange fit. Yeah. But again, AFL will be good for him. And De La Guerra, I like him more than Tobias, mainly just because he can play more positions. I think he's not a great shortstop.
He's passable though. When I saw him, he had a lot of action in the one game I saw him at, and he looked fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely done a much better job of improving, because when he first entered the system, he was not good at second base. Right. So he's done some good stuff there, and you can probably fake him at third base if you needed to, but he's still best at second. But he can hit a little bit, and I think I think Alex talks about it, that they kind of view him as a utility player. So I wonder if they're going to move him around a little bit there.
Well,
too.
And it's interesting because I don't know if I haven't had a chance to read Alex's piece all the way yet, but De La Guerra was listed as an outfielder on the rosters that were released. I could see them getting him some time in the outfield just to make him, almost something of a what they're trying to do with Zue Lin.
I mean, he's very Brock Holtish in some areas of the game. Like, he can play, passable second, short, third, probably the corner outfield also. Probably could stick him at first base if you really needed to. Contact-oriented guy, fringy runner, minimal power, so...
I like him as the guy that you plug in a position for 2 or 3 games, and he's not going to win you a game necessarily, but he's not going to kill you.
Exactly.
I think that's a great role for him, potentially, if he turns into what he can turn into.
And those are the type of guys every team needs. Mm-hmm. You can't fill your team with studs or, A-level prospects or whatever. You need some glue guys, some guys who know their role and play it well. And I think he could have a pretty long career doing that.
Mm-hmm. With the pitchers, let's for the sake of my my ego, let's finish with the guys that I called as going to the Arizona Fall League, and then we'll get to the 2 weird guys. Currently Portland bullpen guys, although one has been up in Pawtucket. Both guys we've talked about recently, so you don't really need to belabor the point. But
I actually saw them both last week too.
Yeah, Ty Buttrey and Bobby Pointer. Buttrey, really kind of the flashier prospect, got the bigger bonus originally. He's the guy who's reportedly touched 100 this year, and something just got caught in my throat. Sorry.
You're all right there?
Yeah, I'm good. Whereas Pointer, just kind of more of a, basic sort of profile, drafted as I think he was a senior, right?
He got $10,000 bonus.
Yeah, out of the University of Florida, and just has really burst onto the scene this year. He's been borderline unhittable as Portland's closer. I think he's given up a couple runs since he went up to Portland. If that,
he's given up four earned runs in 37 innings.
Yeah, just and Buttrey. Meanwhile, he started the year great, went up to Pawtucket, kind of got his hat handed to him a little bit. He was up and down a little bit, and he's settling back in right now at the Portland level. But I think they're kind of pumping the brakes on him a little bit, as opposed to giving him the strap the rocket to his back treatment. A couple of interesting guys. Get him some innings in the AFL. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think Buttrey is a little interesting just for next year, in the sense that I believe he has to be added to the Rule 5, or he has to be added to the 40-man roster, or is exposed to the Rule 5 draft.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think so.
So they're going to get a good look at him against some premier talent, because there's some pretty good hitting prospects there, and so will the rest of the league, though. So it's going to be interesting what they decide to do after he gets there. Because, I think it makes sense. I'll just touch on what I saw from him last week. He was up to 98. He was mostly like 95, 97. And showed just through the slider 81 to 83. He didn't throw his changeup because it was a pretty short outing. But, he looks good. He looked better than he did when I saw him at Pawtucket the last time, as you alluded to. And then Pointer's a weird one because he doesn't have like the weird arm slots like Robbie Scott does or anything, but he has better stuff in my opinion. He's like 89, 90, change up and a slider, and hitters just don't see the ball from him. Like, it's really strange. He's got 51 strikeouts in 37 innings throwing that hard, which again shows you don't need velocity if you can command the pitch, and hitters can't see it. But
in Double A,
in Double A, that's the thing, and he's one of these guys like Scott that he's already 24. I'm going to need to see him do it at every level. But at worst, I think there's a decent chance he could be like a Loogie type, even though I think he's been better against righties this year than lefties. But still, I think he's someone who's pretty interesting. There's not much upside, but it's like a 6th, 7th inning arm, maybe, most likely, middle relief type.
All right, well, we're kind of burying the lead a little bit here too, Ian. Let's talk about potentially the two most interesting guys. And frankly, after I thought about it, both of them make a lot of sense. The third bullpen arm that the Red Sox are sending is Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
Really interesting, but it makes sense because he's out of options next year.
Yeah.
They need to see how he plays in a bullpen role because, on the one hand, you could say, oh, we'll make him the swingman in the bullpen, and I just feel like that role never works. You wind up with a guy like, I think, was it Kyle Snyder a few years ago, who would only pitch when they needed a guy to throw 4 innings, and so as a result, he'd
throw like every 6 days.
He'd go a week without pitching, and it was just kind of a waste of a roster spot. I don't like the idea of using a spot on a guy who his only job is to throw long relief. I think having a guy like Johnson in the bullpen who could pitch long outings, and maybe if he can work, if the stuff will play up in shorter outings, also use him in that role. It doesn't need to be as a setup man, but use him in the 6th or 7th.
Even to get a lefty out, get one lefty out in a close game.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's because with him, back in the day, I've seen him top out at 95.
Yeah, same.
He used to throw hard, but I know I heard from someone who saw his last start, and he was sitting like 86, 88.
Really?
Yeah, and so I don't know, the velocity just isn't where it used to be, and it really hasn't been there all year, I don't think. It's supposed to have been, the high 80s. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see how his stuff plays in the bullpen, because he doesn't really have an above average pitch. It's just a lot of, it's like 4 fringe average to average pitches with an above average command profile. So I'm interested to see if maybe he can regain some of that velocity in a bullpen role. But it makes sense, as you said, I think Alex actually made the same point, that they have to look, and he's probably not going to be a starter for the Red Sox next year because their rotation is full. So he's going to have to take to the bullpen role, or they're going to have a tough decision to make this offseason, or next spring training.
Right. And the last guy, the guy who's going to be starting for the what team are they with, by the way? I can't even remember. But less important.
Peoria Javelinas.
Yep. Excellent. All right. Well, the starting pitcher the Red Sox are sending in Peoria is old friend Henry Owens, who I talked about last time, learning his new kind of low 3/4 arm slot. Again, makes perfect sense to me. And
he needs to just throw. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it sounds overly simple, but I think that's what it is. When you're changing arm slots like he is, you just need as many innings as possible, and this is a way to keep him throwing in competitive games. And I'm sure there are going to be struggles. I think he walked a lot of guys in his last outing.
Well, I'm looking it up right now just because it was kind of interesting because I saw what was probably his best outing since he started working from his new arm slot, and then he followed that up with just a weird start. Okay, that was actually a few outings later, but in his last outing on August the 28th, so that is yesterday, I guess. He walked 7 in 5 1/3 innings.
Yeah, that was it.
Hit a guy and had 2 wild pitches.
Yeah, so it's going to be slow progression with this. He has 51 walks now in 50 innings with Portland compared to 43 strikeouts. So
actually, the last start too, in 5 innings, he walked 5, hit 3 guys, had 3 wild pitches, and struck out 6. And okay, so this was the outing I was thinking of. He allowed 2 hits. I think they were both on ground balls that got through the infield. He allowed 1 ball hit in the air to the outfield. It was just clearly an outing where they weren't hitting him. He was just getting himself in trouble by hitting guys, walking them, and throwing wild pitches when they were on base. I think there was also a pass ball in that outing as well. So just a weird outing. And it's that's what you're getting from him right now.
Yeah, and I think I wonder if this is a kind of like a tryout for him in the sense that if they need a 40-man spot in the offseason, he could be on the short list of guys that would potentially get removed if they signed anyone.
That's true because, people have been saying, oh, well, we're coming up on September call-ups and there's guys, including 2 who you wrote about recently, who might be added to the 40-man. You had a great scouting scratch on Jalen Beeks and Bryce Brents, who are the 2 guys who are most likely to have their contracts selected up to the 40-man roster come September. And you just start looking at guys on the 40-man roster, and people keep bringing up Owen's name, and I tell them, I've been saying, based on what I saw, that's a player who can pitch for you in the majors. But this guy we've seen the last couple outings probably isn't a guy who could pitch for you in the majors. So
I think part of it, though, is he's not a starter anymore, or he shouldn't be.
No, it's a relief
If you're
profile.
throwing from that arm slot, you're a reliever.
Well, either that or you're Randy Johnson, and it's the kind of situation where it's like when people say, oh, well, Greg Maddux didn't throw upper 90s. It's like, yeah, because he could move the ball in every direction and had plus command. If Greg Maddux is where you have to go to prove a point, then you've already lost. Same thing with Randy Johnson. If you have to go there for, oh, well, starters have this arm slot too. Yeah, well, Randy Johnson threw upper 90s and had a double plus slider.
Yeah.
So
because I'm like looking at the list, and they're going to have to. I think they're going to activate Carson Smith probably as September 1st or as soon as the Pawtucket season ends, because he's been very good of late in Pawtucket. And even though the stuff wasn't really back, but I mean he's been throwing strikes and keeping the ball down, getting a lot of ground balls, which is what matters for him as a sinker baller. And so you're going to have to clear a spot for him already, and then after that, Beeks, Brent, guys like that, if you want to add anyone else, they're going to have to create, 1, 2, 3 spots. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because you can put David Price on the 60-day if he's not going to be back before September 21st, but then if he comes back, you're going to have to make a spot. I mean, so you're just kicking the can down the road to see if he can get back or not. So, yeah. It's a series of interesting decisions coming up, and you just wonder with Owens. I think the AFL might be his shot because I thought they would give him next year because he does have an option left.
Okay.
Yeah, but that said, if you see it in Arizona and it's not taking, he's at the point where he's got enough reps, I think, with it that it's not a matter of, at this point he's at let's see, he's been 50. In Portland.
50 innings. I was just looking at it.
For 50 innings, 11 starts, and I think that's all with the new arm slot. So, yeah, because the first outing was the one where he didn't last out of the first inning. So, yeah, but it's an interesting crew. It's going to be one of the more interesting follows of the Arizona Fall League that they've had, I think, in some time. I'm interested. All of these guys are ranked, which is the first time in a while, I think, actually, come to think of it. Or not, they're either ranked or graduated and would be ranked. But, Chavis is at 3, Johnson's at 13, Buttrey, Pointer, De La Guerra, Tobias are all on the More Prospects page. They're all ranked 21 to 60. So, yeah.
It's interesting, though, I just noticed this, that they haven't sent, I thought you sent 8 guys.
No, 7.
Okay.
It's sometimes they'll send an 8th when, there's no outfielder and no catcher, which is...
That's what I was about to say. And there's no one below AA this year for the first time in a while. Usually there's been like one, high A guy.
Well, there used to be a rule that they all had to be in AA as of August 1st, except for one. So you would see guys promoted on like July 31st.
Yeah,
who were kind of borderline so that they could go to the AFL and not use the exemption. And then they got rid of the exemption. They kind of left it to teams to decide who to send. And it's like, if you want to send your high A guy, have fun. But yeah, no high A guy this year. Although, frankly, the Salem team doesn't really have anybody.
Yeah, I was just looking at it, and there's none of the arms that they would send they're going to be up at innings limits and position players. I mean, the only ones I would think would be maybe Trenton Kemp, but he's injured still, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, Tate Matheny maybe, but there's no rush on him.
No, so yeah, it's a good point. Interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to track though, because that, as you said, it's one of the more interesting crews they've sent. I think for a variety of reasons, not just top end prospects, but you've got a mix of everything.
Exactly. All right, some other quick news, Ian. Just going down the list here. Anything that sticks out to you? I guess I'll just kind of mention Brendan Nail is an undrafted free agent they signed and sent to Lowell. Anything interesting there? Have you seen him?
Haven't seen him, so okay. Don't know. I think he made his debut yesterday, I want to say, or 2 days ago.
Gotcha.
So I haven't seen him yet.
Gotcha. Zach Schellinger in the Gulf Coast League. He's the Red Sox 6th-round pick out of Seton Hall. Made his debut. He's pitching. He's just throwing short outings. Had kind of an injury-plagued spring, so just kind of getting some innings there. And also something that you don't have on here, Alex Scherf tweeted today that he threw his first bullpen since being drafted. So doesn't look like he'll get in a game before the season ends, but
no, he's gearing up for Instructs.
Yep, exactly. So he'll be throwing at Instructs where you will hopefully see him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else we got here. Lucas Young.
Just quickly on Schellinger, because he's actually someone people might be wondering about, because he only got 175,000, but I think we have him in the top 30.
Maybe
he's 29. Yeah.
Okay.
He's someone that I've gotten a couple of really good reports on from the Cape last year, and so this is kind of a hedge. He was hurt all this spring for a couple things, a couple of different injuries / sick things, and it was just kind of those reports were good enough that I think they warranted that type of ranking, because apparently the stuff is premium stuff if he's healthy, and so it'll be interesting. Hopefully, we'll get a look at him in Instructs to see where he's at, kind of recovery wise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an interesting guy in that respect, but then there's always the question of health. He's a guy who looks like he's going to be straight bullpen.
Yeah, he's
like Stephen Nagosic last year.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting guy. Lucas Young, a guy that I hadn't really thought that much about, 2017 draftee, had been pitching for Lowell, promoted up to Greenville, where Greenville is going to be in the playoffs. They won the first half in their division in the South Atlantic League, so they are in the playoffs. So getting a little bit more relief help from Lowell in the form of Lucas Young, who I had kind of quietly in 20 innings in Lowell, struck out 25, walked 4, gave up 19 hits, somehow gave up 11 runs in those 20 innings on 23 base runners. So
that's impressive. That strand rate's not great.
That's not a great strand rate, but quietly had some pretty good peripherals I hadn't even noticed until the rankings for process for September 1st.
I actually saw his worst outing of the year and wrote about it, which is funny. He got crushed in the outing. I want to say he gave up 6 runs or something.
Oh, well, there you go.
But he was 90, 92, had some feel for a breaking ball, and then threw, I think, a slider and a changeup too. Mm-hmm. But he's a relief guy, and as you said, looked like the strikeout to walk numbers are good, so should be a good test in Greenville for his first pro season.
It's funny. He was a starter in college at Mobile, and struck out 86 and walked 18 in 92 and a third innings. So that's a nice nifty little 4.8 strikeout to walk ratio.
He was 11.25 in Lowell, so.
There you go. No, strikeouts to walks, not strikeouts per 9.
Oh, he was... No, that's right, isn't it?
No.
Oh, we don't have strikeouts per walk on the stats.
Yes, we do. 6.25, Ian.
Yeah, you win. Sorry. Math is hard.
I win. The maths.
It's late.
Maths.
That's my excuse.
Excellent. Well, he was a 21st rounder signed for $40K, so potential another senior find for the Red Sox. They're good at that, man.
They are. That's why you have scouts.
What else we got? All right, let's see. So long, Noe Ramirez. A couple guys DFA'd since the last episode of the podcast. Noe Ramirez DFA'd, claimed by the Los Angeles Angels on waivers, going home to I guess the Angels are technically in Anaheim, but
LAAA.
LAAA. And he's an LA resident, or born and raised.
He went to Fullerton, I believe.
He did go to Fullerton, so returning to California. So long, Noe Ramirez. We hardly knew you. Meanwhile, one that came down today, Steve Selski, who was designated for assignment, cleared waivers and was outrighted to Pawtucket. So he's sticking around at least for the rest of this season, which is another week or so. And then presumably would be a minor league free agent, right?
No. 2018, because he was. Remember, they claimed him up.
That's right. Okay, cool. So he'll be here. He'll be here next year too. Then, cool. Yep. Well, that's a good little depth option for the Red Sox there. Speaking of making room on the 40-man roster, we should mention the trade for Rajai Davis. This came down a few days ago, and you joked that the trash game you were at, you were hoping that the trade for Rajai Davis was going to be for a good prospect, and the Red Sox acquired him for Dominican Summer League outfielder Rafael Rincones.
Yep, sorry, I don't know anything about him. So
Me neither, and that tells you what you need to know.
Who got $300K though? Yeah, he did. He got $300K in the year where they got punished.
Did he?
Yeah, in the year where they had those 5 guys stripped for the package deals.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't know.
Out of Venezuela, all right.
He's hitting 266, 376, 379, repeating the DSL this year. So
yeah, wasn't doing a whole lot.
And I said it on Twitter, but he wasn't at Instructs last year, and he was not at spring training this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, the guys that are in the Dominican Summer League now weren't. So, because all those guys that were got promoted.
I think there was...
No.
Was there any in the DSL? Nope, you're right. There was no one in the DSL who was at spring training this year.
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
Yep.
All right, what else we got? Let's see here. Oh, burying the lead. Jay Groome's season is over because of a
I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, burying the lead. With a forearm strain. Ian, are you worried about Jay Groome's injury durability yet?
He can get there. The injuries he has are not ones I'd like to hear, like lat injuries. They're muscle injuries, basically.
Well, lat injury, especially when it lasts for 3 months.
Yeah, and then a forearm strain is... I'm not going to say what I was going to say, actually, because it's too grim. But forearm strains I don't like to hear with pitchers, I'll just say. And, Groome he's only thrown 55 innings this year, so I'm sure they planned for 100, probably 120 maybe. So obviously, didn't go according to plan this year. But he had some good starts. He had some flashes of very good outings. But I don't like hearing forearm strain, especially when it's combined with in his last start. He went 3 innings, walked 6, gave up no hits, but he walked 6 guys, so that's a little concerning. But, I'll see if he throws down and Instructs. I would expect not if it's any sort of a serious forearm strain. So we'll see. But, I think that we're trending towards him probably heading back to Greenville next year. I think it's the biggest takeaway to start the year, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. No question at this point. And I think it's worth mentioning, though, because I think some people on Twitter got confused by this when I mentioned it. His season being over, he had 2 regular season starts left plus playoffs.
Yeah, no, it's not the end of the world.
It's not saying this isn't July and he's being shut down for the year. It's just a matter of if you're going on the DL at this point for a legitimate injury, you're probably done for the year.
Yeah, the bigger thing to me is, can he get innings at Instructs? Because Instructs, you can add, 3-4 starts over the course of the month, or 22 games or whatever it is. So
yeah, even if you could get another 12 innings, I'd be okay with that.
Exactly. So we'll see. I'll see.
Kind of a weird one. The Red Sox released Taylor Grover. We talked a little bit about him last week. My own speculation, I think it might have been a situation where he asked for it. I can't imagine, or something happened because there was no counter move. That was a little bit strange to me.
He was kind of just...
but he was an effective, go out and...
He had a 5 ERA or something.
But he was the guy that would get the start in the back end of the doubleheader.
I saw him start 4 times this year, and every one of them was the second game of the doubleheader. Mm-hmm. He struck out a lot of guys, but he just wasn't consistent. But just to get 100 and 100 and 20 double-A innings out of a guy you signed for $10K is a pretty good return. So I think they're happy with that.
Sure. A couple guys that got promoted to Lowell, Angel Padron and Rio Gomez, son of Pedro Gomez.
Yes.
Gomez is a 2017 draftee out of Arizona. Padron was a international signee in, if I could get on home row,
2014.
2014. We have his position as S on the international signings page. I just realized. Didn't get a big bonus or anything like that, but moving his way up. A couple more interesting guys going up to Lowell from the GCL. Frankly, Lowell, the first point at which I pay some attention to stats, but just kind of some more guys to round out the Lowell roster. Plus, they finished coming down the stretch. Trey Gans and Emmanuel DeJesus had been promoted from Lowell to Greenville. Gans, a first baseman who was selected this year, one of the senior signs in the back end of day 2. So the Red Sox could save some money moving up to Greenville, where they're a little thin at first base.
Well, no, he wasn't a day 2 guy. He was a day 3. He was the 35th round pick.
Oh, is he? Who am I thinking of? Zach Sterry, then?
Yep, Zach Sterry's in Lowell.
Gans was in the GCL.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of Sterry. Okay,
yep.
Never mind.
They just skipped him up to Greenville. I'm guessing because Greenville had a first baseman get hurt or something.
Well, because they've been kind of low on first baseman. Tucker Tubbs has been the primary first baseman for a while. Mitch Gonsolez can play first base, but he's also been playing left field and third base for them, and I think even some second base.
He plays all over.
Yeah, Jerry Downs, who's on the roster as a first baseman, has basically been exclusively DHing since being activated from the DL, so I think that's just kind of to give them some depth at first base. Because, hey, Tucker Tubbs might be their most effective pitcher right now.
I get asked, it's funny, whenever he pitches, I get asked all the time by people on Twitter, hey, you got a scouting report on Tucker Tubbs? He looks pretty good, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And obviously it's tongue-in-cheek, but you might not be joking. Like, I don't think he's given up a run, and he's pitched probably 4 or 5
times. He finally did in his last one.
Oh, did he?
This
okay.
week, yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of for a pitcher, for a hitter pitching, he had done really well.
Yeah.
So the final promotion was Daniel Gonzalez up to Salem. Daniel Gonzalez, a guy who manned the numbers, just all of the numbers, height, weight, stats, do not match the profile. We've talked about him before, Ian. But all the guy does is succeed. Look at his line. It's impressive. I don't get it. I mean, this year, he split between Salem and Greenville. In Salem, in 5 appearances, he's 4-0 with a 1.65 ERA, 21 hits, 6 walks, 22 strikeouts, and 27 1/3 innings.
Yeah, no, the stats are really good, but I don't know.
In Greenville, in 82 innings, he had a whip of 1.08. He struck out 82 in 82 1/3 innings.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the arm strength. I mean,
it's crazy.
He's up to like 86, 87, so what can you do?
Yeah,
and now it's his, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... It's his 5th year in the organization.
System. Yeah, so he's Rule 5 eligible this offseason.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess we should say that that was the counter move to Roniel Raudes was placed on the DL.
Oh, yes. Presumably ending his year as well. Do we have an injury on that? Probably not.
No, I don't think that one came out. But he's at 116 innings, which they probably wanted like 125, but that's still a pretty good year for him, total innings-wise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would expect him to head back to Salem next year.
To start, at least. I could see him having... I mean, he could also earn his way to Portland, I think. I don't think there's anyone blocking him.
He's going to be 20 to start the season, though. I wouldn't want to send him up to cold weather Portland to start the year as a 20-year-old.
I guess. I mean, our projected Portland rotation next year is Shawarin, Stankiewicz, Lakins, Dedger, Jimenez, and Matt Kent. I could see him forcing his way in there easily.
Maybe. We'll see.
But, I mean, we also have Kevin McAvoy and Trey Ball projected for the bullpen. I could see either of them still starting.
Yeah.
But at any rate. All right, well, I think that clears out the transactions. Ian, really quick, why don't you just give us the highlights from your first-hand scouting as I finally remember to write a note here. You've seen both Portland and Lowell since our last conversation. Any highlights stick out from you from either place?
I saw Dedger for the first time this year.
Jimenez.
He was really good.
Putting in the Portlee in Portland.
What would you say?
Putting the Portly in Portland.
Yeah, he's a weird guy. He's very big. He's listed at 240. He's 280 maybe. But I saw he's been pretty good with Portland. He's got a 3 ERA, 1.37 WHIP. And I saw his start where he went 6 2/3 innings, gave up 7 hits, 1 run, and he only struck out 1 guy. And I don't think he cared at all that he was only struck out 1 guy. He was literally just painting the bottom of the zone, and it was just a lot of weak contact on the ground. And yeah, I mean, he's gone a pretty long way to establish himself as a potential very solid organizational arm. I'm not sure the stuff is there for, there's not a high ceiling or, much of a big league upside, but, he'll be up to 92, but he mostly pitches like 88, 90. Mm-hmm. He'll show a slider, curveball, changeup. They're all, average-ish, below fringe average pitches, but he has feel, throws strikes and works quick. You can't ask for much more than that, especially since I didn't realize he's still pretty young. I think he's only 21 still.
Dedger he is actually young. That's right.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's still 21 years old, and that's at the beginning of the year he turned 21.
Yeah, and I mean, this is his 5th year in the organization, but still, he had a very good year this year, and he's someone who I think, could give them quality innings in the high minors for a few years to come. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about Buttrey and Pointer earlier. At the plate, saw Chavis. He had a bomb to double high off the wall in left field, but pull side again, as we talked about. And in the field, I don't think there was a ball hit to him the entire game, unfortunately. But I still have some concerns about him at the plate. He hunts fastballs big time. He is looking for a fastball middle in that he can turn on. And as a result, he's susceptible to breaking pitches away. He struck out on a slider that he was just way out in front of 1-2 slider away. And his other 2 at-bats, both times he was out in front and tried to hook pitches away, and he ended up just flying out weakly to left field and left center. So, while I think it's been a big step forward for him this year, and he's really reestablished himself on the prospect map, he still does have some things he needs to work on. And one thing in the AFL I'd really like to see him do is just try to focus on using all fields and not just try to pull the ball. Because, it's all well and good. You're hitting 29 home runs and everything. But we'll talk about a little later, your power's not going to actualize if you're not making enough contact or you're just trying to pull everything.
Right.
So, yeah. Right. So, and then the other guy who probably should mention is Josh Ockamy. Mm-hmm. He actually had a pretty good game, or he was pretty good when I saw him. He had a couple hits, and I don't think he's been very good in Portland, I want to say. But I still like him. I think I'm the high guy in our rankings, the 3 of us on him. And I still think there's upside. I think he can hit a little bit, and he's going to strike out a lot, but I think he's going to get on base also. He's a 15% plus walk rate this year to go along with 25% strikeout rate, which is manageable, especially in the way baseball is going. And I think the raw power is there that he'll be able to tap into it eventually. And as long as, he can become an adequate defender at first base, I think he's got some upside there.
He's actually been pretty good in Portland, and he's hitting 265, 374, 422.
Yeah, he's got on base skills. Like he knows the plate, but I think part of it is just he kind of runs into Yohan Moncada syndrome in the sense that he'll work a count too much. And, because he's looking for the perfect pitch to hit, he'll end up being, behind 1-2 or it'll be 0-2 before you know it. And as a result, you're going to strike out more that way because he does have, some swing and miss in his profile too. But I like the walk rate. I like that he hits the ball hard. I think the power is mostly pull side, but I've seen him go the other way against to beat the shift. So I think he's someone who could have a future with the Red Sox.
I thought you were saying something else when you said beat the shift, and it was weird.
Oh, no.
What he does to the ball or something.
Yeah, no.
All right, Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Lowell.
Yep.
Lowell's, it's not very good.
Yeah.
This game was not good. Yorvin Pantoja, who I wrote about a couple weeks ago, I think he lasted like 2 2/3 innings. He was not very good. No command. I think he threw the ball to the backstop directly a few times. He was like 88 to 90. It's got a long way to go. I saw Dominic Labruto. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
But it was the
first time I've seen him, and it's interesting. When I wrote about him, so preview that'll be coming at some point, probably next week, I would guess, on the website. But he was the first left-hander the Red Sox drafted this year. I didn't realize that. 17th round pick. So they took a lot of right-handed pitchers before him. And he was actually decent. He was like 89, 91, had a cutter, which I liked. His cutter was his best pitch by far. But he could use it against righties and lefties. Showed some feel for a slider. And he had like a firm changeup. So it was a lefty kind of, someone to watch. And then the other guy I saw was Taylor Ahern, who I wrote about, I want to say, last week or 2 weeks ago. He was 90-92. I don't know where he was what round he was drafted in, but I think he only got a 5K bonus.
Yeah, he was drafted in the 32nd round.
Yeah, and he signed for 5K out of Cal State St. Marcus. But yeah, he was 90-92 with zinc. Showed a slider, a changeup, and a curveball. And actually it was interesting because he didn't show the slider the first time I saw him this year. And I kind of liked the slider a lot more than his other pitches, so that was a good development. But, he's someone, I don't know. Yeah. Fringy arm. But offensively, there was nothing. I mean, it's just not a good offensive team. Nick Hamilton got a 4.0, like 2 down the line. That was probably the highlight of the game. He can really run, but he just can't hit at all. So, that's the problem. But, other than that, I wrote about Michael Osinski and Marino Campana, who I know I've actually got a few questions on Twitter about those guys because they've been two of the better hitters for Lowell. So I'll just leave that there, and you have to check out the news page probably next week about them.
Yeah, probably. Well, we might get one up later in the week.
We'll see. We got a couple in the pipeline already, so we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Ian. And with that, I think we should jump into emails.
Let's do it.
To remind everyone, we got some. It's a good crop of emails, man.
I like it. Let's keep it going, though. Keep the momentum going in the offseason.
It's a good crop of emails. The emails are so exciting that the cat just came into the recording studio. She's interested. I'm interested. Remember, send your questions to podcast@SoxProspects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. And what you want to hear about, man, there's a lot here. We're going to try and get through them all. First question is from... Our first set of questions is from Clifford. Clifford sent in 3 questions. He acknowledged that he knows I said to say one, so he would understand if I just picked one and ignored the others. But frankly, they're 3 good questions. So you know what? Screw it. Let's do all of them. First one, Ian, is about Josh Ockamy, or not more general, but mentions Josh Ockamy at a point that you just said. Why is it that some players, like Josh Ockamy, have plus raw power, but it doesn't translate to in-game power? He seems like a unique scenario in that he can hit in-game, but the full power potential has not shown. Does he have a different swing in batting practice where he is selling out for power? Fair question. I think,
there are players who do that too.
And I mean, it's interesting that the example that comes to mind as I read this is Chavis before this year, where...
Yeah, when we saw him in Greenville, you remember that?
Yeah, we saw him in Greenville on a roster that included Yoan Moncada, Rafael Devers, Nick Longy, Javi Guerra. Who else was on that team?
Luis Alexander.
No, he wasn't. Remember, he was in Lowell.
There's one. Oh, no.
I'll look it up. But at any rate,
was loaded.
Yeah, it was a loaded roster that had 5 top 15 prospects or something, and his batting practice was by far the most impressive of anyone's batting practice.
Like, if you've been to Greenville or seen their park at all, they have a green monster replica.
Dubon.
Dubon, that's what it was.
Mauricio Dubon, Jordan Procession in a year when he was an all-star. Ben Moore was the backup catcher. Cisco Tejas.
Yep.
And of course Carlos Mesa, because he was Moncada's caddy. Actually, Moncada wasn't on that team to start the year either. That's right.
He was there when we went there, though.
Right, but it was. How did they work that?
He sat out like the first month.
No, I know, but Dubon and Guerra were on the team to start the year. Did Dubon go up to? Dubon went up to Salem, didn't he? That's what happened. Dubon went up to Salem early because we were like, oh my god, Dubon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you've been to Greenville, they have a big. It's similar. It's replica left field like Fenway has. And he was clearing the left center field, which is like 380, and going towards, there's like condos in the back. And he was like hitting the condos, which are 15, 20 feet, 30 feet. I don't know. They're behind the wall a significant amount. and he was, he was hitting them on the fly or on the bounce, and it was very impressive.
Let's get onto the question though. What is it that makes a player tap into their raw power in game? And with a guy like Ockamy, where it's unique, where it's not like he's hitting 210, why does it not necessarily show in game if he's got plus or plus raw power?
I mean, some guys, a good example of this is Garen Shakini. He had raw power, but he just in game, he just tried to make contact. And as a result, if you're swinging, in batting practice, you can drop the shoulder, drop the bat head, and just try to lift the ball in the air. But in game, if your swing path is more level, you're not going to hit for as much power. And I think he was someone who kind of did that. Another example would be someone like Bobby Dahlbeck, who has elite, it's 70, not elite, but it's probably 65, 70 raw power. But if you don't make enough contact, that power is not going to translate. Doesn't matter how strong you are, how much raw power you have. If you strike out as much as he is right now, or there's other players around baseball who do that, then you're just never going to tap into it. So swing and miss is an issue. Approach can be an issue. Mm-hmm. You can have all the raw power in the world, but if you don't know what's a strike and what isn't, or you can't recognize spin, you're not going to be able to make solid contact and drive the ball. So I think probably those are the three main reasons: the approach, pitch recognition, and then just how you get a swing path, or what you decide to do.
I think it's worth mentioning too that hitting for hits is different than hitting for home runs. You could still, especially in the minors where defenses aren't quite as good, swing at a pitch and not quite get all of it, but get enough of it to get a single out of it, and so it's still going to go in as a hit. And then you just say, well, why is he getting all these singles? You've got in your head like well struck base hit up the middle or something, when it could just be
a dribbler.
A dribbler that gets through or something, so not all hits are made equal, especially in the minor leagues.
And I think also, too, another thing to consider with the minor leagues is the Red Sox have fallen into this. In the past, Salem has played as an extreme pitcher's park.
True.
So you could have all the raw power in the world, but I don't really trust home run totals at the minor league level all that much for that reason. You could see a guy I think Devers, what do you have, 11 home runs in Salem last year?
Something like that.
And he's got 30 plus this year between the three levels. So it's, minor league home run totals, while they're obviously a good barometer in some instances, you kind of do need to see the player and see what they're doing. And you'll run into situations. I know in Double-A, Reading's a good example of this. Reading's ballpark plays like a bandbox for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they had last year 3 guys hit like 40 plus home runs there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Rhys Hoskins obviously is like the best player in baseball right now. But
are you just saying that because you were smart enough to add him in our fantasy league?
I was smart enough to do that, but he really has. I think he has like 11 home runs over his first 20 games. He
does, yeah.
But the other guy who's there is Dylan Cousins, who I saw this year, and I don't think he can hit at all. But he has like 70, 80 raw power. He's 6'6", 250, like a hulking left-handed bat, just huge human being, and strong as an ox. But if you can't make contact, it's not going to matter. So.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons, but I guess specifically on Ockamy, I think part of it is that he's working on going the other way. I remember when I saw him in Greenville in batting practice, was that last year then? Mm-hmm. So last year. He was specifically working on pulling his hands in and using all fields, and so if he's working on things at the plate, maybe he's not just trying to go out there and hit a home run every time, because you got to remember, when you're in the minors, it's a developmental process, They're not looking. Some guys obviously are, but you're not looking to go out and hit a home run at every at bat. So let's say you might have the best pitch you're going to see in your at bat's the first pitch, but if you're working on seeing the ball and tracking it, you're going to take that pitch. Right. And if another pitch like that doesn't come, there's your chance to hit a home run gone. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot that goes into it that makes it something. And I think with what Ockamy did this year, I've been pretty impressed. He's got 13 home runs. Obviously, it's less than last year, but. Salem isn't a good park for lefties, and neither is Portland, really. So
right, and just something that made me think of too is home run totals in the other direction can also be pretty misleading, especially when you have kind of older guys at a level.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy Barfield.
Yeah, Jeremy Barfield's the guy that comes to mind. I'm not saying all of his home runs have been like this by any stretch of the imagination, because I've seen one of his home runs this year, but I know at least the one I saw was on a mistake pitch, high middle, up and in the middle of the plate. A slider that didn't slide, and he just destroyed the pitch. I mean, it was just as soon as he hit it, it was just like, okay, yeah, that's gone.
Yeah.
And there are hitters, especially when they're old for the level in the minor leagues, when they're seeing more mistake pitches, there are guys who can just drill mistake pitches. And in the major leagues, you're not going to get nearly as many mistake pitches. So if you're a mistake pitch hitter in the minor leagues, that's why these guys who, this home run total can't be, it has to be real based on the numbers. Like, well, no, it can be fake. There's something to how you are succeeding in the minor leagues that the success can also be misleading.
Yeah, and I think another guy who's kind of an example is someone like Mike Holt. Mike Holt has big-time raw power, but it's like slider bat speed. And, a lot of the hard contact he makes is fly balls to left field, and Portland left field's pretty short. It's the green monster again. And so if you get the ball in the air and the wind's blowing out, you're going to hit a decent number of home runs there.
Right. Well, let's get on with Clifford's other questions, Ian. Any news on the work Michael Chavis has been doing at first base? Can we expect him to start a game there this season? I think it would be the shortest first baseman in the majors. I believe the shortest right now is Carlos Santana at 5'11". We talked a little bit about this already, obviously, but I don't have any news on the work he's been doing there, just taking ground balls at this point. We'll see. That's it in Arizona.
I've heard is that he's taking ground balls.
Yep. Clifford also asks, if Dustin Pedroia's knee were to cut his career short, do you think the Red Sox would ever consider moving Mookie Betts back to second base, or do you not want to screw up a good thing with his right, or he says a great thing, with his right field defense? First off, thank you for the questions, Clifford. I think it's interesting. Ian, I would answer it this way. I don't think the Red Sox will do it. I think there are other teams that would.
Yeah. I concur. That ship has sailed for me for him playing second base at this point. But, yeah, I think there would be other teams who would consider it, definitely.
Well, and also I think what would need to happen for them to consider that would be, Jackie Bradley signs an extension that he's going to stick around for a while. You've got Benintendi, and, the outfield version of Devers is coming up.
Yeah, you need a right fielder in that sense.
Yeah, and it's right field at Fenway is so important given its dimensions.
You need a center fielder in right field at Fenway.
You do, and I mean, I don't think Benintendi is nearly as good of a fit there.
He's not
because
he's not as good a defender.
He's not as good of a defender, period. Frankly, but even still, the arm as well. I mean, he was a pretty good center fielder. He was
an average-ish defender.
Average-ish defender in center, which is a thing that's good, that's useful. You can play him in center. But
a lot of teams would play him in center, but just you have Jackie Bradley, who's like a plus center fielder.
I mean, frankly, there's an argument that at Fenway Park, Jackie Bradley should be playing center right field and Mookie Betts should be playing center field, but that's a digression we should. I mean, I'm saying there's an argument. I'm not saying I subscribe to it, but
yeah. But I think it's just like moving him to second is what is it? Stealing from Peter to pay Paul. I think that's the case. You're plugging that hole at second, but they don't have a long-term right fielder that I see in the organization right now, other than Mookie Betts.
Nope.
And as you said, with the dimensions of Fenway, defense in right field is more important than it is in a lot of other parks. You can't just stick like a slow guy out, the lumbering guy in right field like you can at some parks. So yeah.
All right, Ian, frequent emailer Bob asks, Rusney Castillo has quietly put together a good season. I don't see how the Red Sox can fit him on the roster even next year due to luxury tax concerns. Does he have any trade value? What say you?
I agree with you. He's had a good season. I have been impressed. I still think he could be a big league player. I don't think he will be a big league player for the Red Sox, and he doesn't have any trade value for that same reason because he costs too much money.
I don't necessarily know that I agree with that or that he doesn't fit next year due to luxury tax considerations because the Red Sox wanted to get under this year, as we have mentioned on here and as you made the point, probably because next year they're going over.
They know they're going over. I don't think they have a choice, right?
So once you are over, although granted the new CBA does have more harsh penalties depending on how far over the cap you go, how far over the CBT you go.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can justify Rusney Castillo as your number 4 outfielder. He needs to beat Bryce Brents for that spot because I think Bryce Brents is going to get added to the 40-man roster, if not in September, then before he becomes a minor league free agent, so that they can bring him into camp next year to compete for that 4th outfielder spot. And he's also been taking ground balls at first base. I think Bryce Brents would be the front runner for that position based on how he's done this year and the fact that he'd be out of options as well. But I think you could justify there's a scenario, depending on what they do at first base in the offseason, where both Bryce Brents and Rusney Castillo are on the Major League roster next year.
I mean, I think he still could. He's been much better than I even thought. He's hitting 314, 350, 507 in Pawtucket this year with 15 home runs and 14 steals.
Yeah, Castillo's had a good year.
That's a very solid year.
He's probably going to be there. Maybe it'll be Brent's. That'll be their team MVP. But he's been solid. He's on the DL right now, which would preclude any September call-up. It's been kind of comical to me to see. I think I saw one article where Rusney Castillo isn't going to come up in September. And it's like, yeah, because he's on the DL.
Well, but he's not going to come up because...
Well, he's not anyway because they don't have room for him. But
they have, I think I read somewhere that they have like $500,000 to play with between the tax. So it's like one minor league.
Yeah, we should probably give credit to, I think it's Red Sox payroll on Twitter.
It's a really good, they have like
Sox
a Google
payroll.
Doc and they're good.
They're doing the Lord's work.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they can fit guys. I think people interpreted that to mean they can't fit guys at the league minimum. They can, because it's prorated. They just can't fit Rusney Castillo.
No, because he's making $15 million this year or $14 million or something. Yeah, so prorated would be 1.5 or whatever for a month.
They don't have room.
No.
So at any rate, I trade value. I think you could get something for him potentially if you pay a lot of his money, which I don't.
And they're not going to want to.
They're not going to. Yeah. Frequent emailer Tyler Woodrow. What has happened to Blake Swihart? Is it just injuries? Do you see him ever reaching his potential? Keep up the good work. Ian, I think the ship is pretty much sailed at this point on Swihart becoming the guy that I thought he could become in terms of the poor man's Buster Posey behind the plate. I think it's just not happening. You've seen him in Pawtucket. Is it just injuries or what the heck's going on?
I mean, I think injuries are definitely a part. He doesn't look nearly as athletic or as fluid as he used to.
Not catching a lot since he got activated.
No. But I think, injuries are a problem. I wonder just if his confidence is shot. He just doesn't have that same swagger he used to have, for lack of a better word. And the quality of his at-bats has really gone down the tube. I think he's hitting 194 for the year in Pawtucket. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Power's gone. He's striking out a lot more than he used to. He's not walking at all, really. So I think he just needs a change of scenery. That was what that one scout suggested to me, is that he's someone who just needs to go to another organization where he can kind of start fresh. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most likely outcome this offseason, is that he gets dealt for someone, because some organization will be willing to take a flyer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Swihart, since being activated by the Paw Sox, has DH'd 5 times, played first base 3 times, and caught 3 times. Yeah. And he also had a 5-day layoff at one point before coming back on the 28th.
And the thing is, the bat always profiled best as a catcher. That was part of the appeal. Whereas at other positions, it wasn't as big an asset. So.
Yeah, people kind of didn't understand good bat for catcher doesn't mean you move him to third just because you have Christian Vasquez. It was a good bat for catcher and average at third.
I saw him as like a 275, 280 hitter with 15-ish home runs. And at catcher, that's great. But other positions, it's passable, but you need other big hitters around it. And so, I think it's just, it's, as we kind of talk about a lot with prospects, development isn't linear and not everyone's going to pan out, and things are going to happen. Fluky things happen. And, it all started with him getting demoted from catcher and then moving to the outfield and then landing awkwardly in the wall, and look where we are now. So,
probably this is one of the times when I will say this has been horribly mismanaged by the Red Sox. And I
mean, we've talked about it.
We've killed it. We've beaten that dead horse, but anyway.
But the thing is, this isn't revisionist thinking bias. I'm pretty sure we were on the record time as saying that too. So
I was screaming to the heavens, I think. Our next email is from Brian from Sox Signatures. Brian, I will answer the rest of your email soon. Sorry, I admittedly just forgot about the rest of your email. But
you moved also.
I also moved. Yeah. His podcast question is another catcher one, so it's a good timing for it. He was wondering if we think either Jake Romanski or Dan Butler, who are the Pawtucket Red Sox other catchers right now, might get September call-ups, or will the Sox go with only Blake Swihart as the third catcher, even though he's limited behind the plate? Second, how are the catcher-to-pitcher converts, Devin Fisher and Jordan Weems, doing? Are they possible relief arms or just org guys? Let's start with Romanski Butler. It's Swihart. They're not going to...
Yeah, they're not bringing a third catcher.
They're not going to...
fourth, sorry. They don't
well, but it would be the third catcher instead of Swihart. I think the only way that would work is if they were comfortable 60-day DLing Swihart to add Butler or Romanski. I mean, it would be Butler because he's been at Pawtucket all year. Romanski spent part of the year in Portland after being suspended. Yeah, they're not going to reward Romanski. It would be Butler, I think. I think they'll just go with Swihart.
I agree.
The third catcher doesn't play a lot. They're not going to start the third catcher no matter who it is.
Yep.
Unless, they clinch. So I think it'll be Swihart. I think maybe it'll even be a chance to kind of bring his confidence back up because he'll be back up with the Major League team. I don't know. As for the other two players he asked about, Devin Fisher and Jordan Weems were both drafted as catchers and are currently pitching in relief. Jordan Weems is on the DL in Salem and has been for a while. But Weems this year split between Greenville and Salem, mostly in Salem in 42 innings, has a 4.93 ERA, 36 strikeouts in 42 innings, but 22 walks. So the walks are a lot higher than you want to see out of him. Has given up 5 home runs in those 42 innings. So, not great there for Weems, who was a former third-round pick as a catcher and is now trying to convert to relief. As for Devin Fisher, he was drafted in the 20th round in 2014. Just never really hit, never got out of the GCL as a catcher. He is in his second year as a pitcher. He's in Lowell in 30 innings. He's got a 4.45 ERA, 33 strikeouts, and 19 walks. So again, the strikeout numbers aren't bad, but 19 walks is a lot higher than you would want to see. Also 21 hits. Ian, you've seen both this year. Just really quick, do you see a Major League future for either?
It's going to be tough. I mean, they're both old. I mean, I think Weems is already 24, 25.
Yeah, and Weems had actually made it all the way up to Portland as a catcher before they moved him. He, again, never really hit. They gave him half a season as a first baseman, hoping that would help him hit. But, he was the third-round pick in 2011, as opposed to Fisher, who was a high school draft pick in 2014. So he's got 3 years on him. And
Fisher is like, I think he was up to 95 or 96 when I saw him earlier this year. It's a funky delivery. He had some feel. I want to say it was a slider. I don't have my notes with me, so this is going off the top of my head. It was a slider and a changeup. And looking at his numbers this year, actually the advanced metrics seem to like him. It's like something, or he's gotten pretty unlucky. He's like average against 188 this year, so he's been tough to hit, and he's only given up 1 home run in 30 innings, which is a good sign. So he's someone, keep an eye on, but with all conversions, as we're seeing with Williams Harris, it's a long road to go, no matter how good your stuff is. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, those kind of conversions are usually kind of log shots. I mean, I know you've got Kenley Jansen closing in the majors. You've got Sean Doolittle closing in the majors, but for every one of them who makes it, there's a number of guys who never get outside of short season.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks for the question, Brian. Let's empty the inbox, Ian, really quick. I have a question from Pat in Tewksbury. He asks about the approval of promotions and demotions. Often we use phrases such as "they thought he was ready for the next level" or "they didn't think he was ready to move up." So he's curious, who exactly is they in those circumstances? He realizes for someone like Benintendi or Rafael Devers, it's something that may go up to Dave Dombrowski's desk, but for someone lower in the minors, say a young mid-level prospect who does have potential down the road, how far up the ladder does that decision go? Does Dave Dombrowski need to sign off on every promotion or demotion, or just the bigger names? Thanks, Pat and Tewksbury, for the email. It's a good question. Ian, I think I'm inclined to agree that the big ones, Dombrowski's got some say, but I think Dombrowski's really only going to have say on guys who are closer to the majors. You're talking above Double-A, might help in the majors this year, and might be a big guy like a Devers or a Benintendi. But other than that, I think we're talking Ben Crockett, the player development director.
Yeah, I think it's Ben Crockett, the managers, and then you have the roving instructors who go around. Guys like
and those are guys with input, not the guys, not the managers, not saying, "Hey, call my guy up."
No, but they elicit input, and they talk to a lot of people. The organization's going to talk to a lot of people. I would, there's their own scouts even. We'll see they self scout every team across the levels, also. Mm-hmm. So when you're making personnel decisions, it's good to have as much information as possible. And yeah, I mean, I know with some call-ups to the majors, they'll elicit opinion from every scout who's seen the player over the last couple of months or whatever, and see what they think, and things along those lines. But as I think the emailer's pretty spot on with, Dave Dombrowski is more involved when it's calling someone up to the majors, but before that, it's mostly the player personnel guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome, and we've got one last email. This from Brett. Brett asks, if Blake Swihart hadn't graduated, where would he rank? This is a tough one. I always struggle with these, just because ranking itself is so hard.
Ranking a 25-year-old compared to an 18-year-old?
Yeah, it just makes it so apples to oranges. Honestly,
I've changed since we talked about it before.
I have too. Well, I'll let you start. Where would you rank Blake Swihart right now in the system, and why?
8.
Okay.
Because it was tough. I think anywhere from 4 to 8, I think, is justifiable. But I just don't see a first division ceiling anymore from Swihart. Mm-hmm. I think, best case, you're looking at an average regular. And I just don't see it necessarily with the Red Sox. It's my concern. But I still think there's enough there that he would be in the top 10 still, especially being in AAA already.
What would your grading on him be?
I think right now he's probably
in that range, you're calling him a 4.5.
I think he's probably a backup.
Right. So just so people know, our scouting scale on SoxProspects.com, which we don't really talk about ever on here.
No, and it's not ours. We should say.
Yeah, it's the scouting scale
standard. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we give guys a projection and then a floor and a ceiling. So when we talk about a roll 4.5 guy or a 45, that for a hitter is a bench utility or utility player. So the example we have right now is Darnell McDonald.
Yeah, I think he's like a 4 or 5 probably. I still think he's an up and down big leaguer at worst, mm-hmm. and then probably more of a bench type. If he hits more, it could be an everyday guy. Yeah,
floor would be. Floor is a 3 because that's what he is. A ceiling.
I still think he could be. It's a 4 floor though. I have a hard time. I still believe in the talent. I don't know. I just still think he could be an up and down guy at worst.
All right, what would you put for a ceiling? 5 at this point?
At this point, I probably maybe 55 if we could do it, but I don't see
55 ceiling.
I don't see a 6 anymore.
No,
especially if he's not catching every day.
Yeah, if the not being able to catch thing is going forward, I think he's a.
Actually, no, I think it's not 4 or 5. I think it's probably a 5 because as with his offensive profile, it's not more than an average regular in any other position other than catcher. Mm-hmm. So yeah. A lot of his value, as we talked about earlier, was tied up in him being a catcher. So
right, I think I would kind of tend to agree with a lot of that. I don't know that I'd project him as I'd rank him at close to the back of our 4-5s. I might go 13, man. I might rank him behind, like Cole Brannon and Alex Scherf, who are the two, high ceiling high school guys the Red Sox drafted this year. Because at least they have the ceiling.
Yeah, you're getting a little insight into the process. Rankings are tough, especially the way we do them. This year it's been a little easier at the top at least, but once you get down past 4 or whatever, it gets tough.
And it's tough because you're making meaningless distinctions.
Yeah.
We disagree on guys in like the 50s by like 10 spots, and I don't even bring it up anymore because. It's meaningless.
A lot of it's maybe in the off season we'll bring Mike on and have a discussion of our individual processes and everything,
which we argue about and want to kill each other about once.
Yeah, but it's there are a lot of different ways to go about it, and it's hard. We're comparing, what is Swihart, 25 now?
Yeah.
And we're comparing him to 16-year-olds. Like, that's comparing guys 9 years in age apart. That's like comparing me and you.
Well, that's the thing. It's interesting that you put Swihart at 8 because 7 is Daniel Flores, the 16-year-old catcher.
Flores, I'm just going up. That is a pure upside play.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen him. I've not talked to anyone who's seen him. I've read a few things, but from what I understand, I mean, the ceiling is very high, and he's been one of the better international catching prospects to come out. And I mean, one of the ways I like to kind of rank is I look at ceiling as something I factor in pretty heavily. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your questions. We appreciate it. And again, it's podcast at SoxProspects.com. Sorry that this month we were on kind of an every 2-week schedule and that we're not doing it on Mondays like we promised we would. But
here's one for Labor Day weekend, though.
Yeah. Hey, enjoy your holiday, everyone. Enjoy it over the grill if you're grilling out with some burgers or hot dogs, or like me with some portobello mushroom caps.
Tofurkey?
No, dude, the portobello, you could do some good veggie skewers.
Oh, I'm a big portobello mushroom. I love mushrooms.
Grilled peaches.
I will be eating barbecue all weekend, so sorry.
Nice. I admit, dude, No, I'm not. Don't be sorry, because there's a great vegan barbecue place in DC that I love, and I know I probably just lost listeners with that comment, but
fair enough.
Smoke and Barrel in DC, man. That's my jam.
I'll be having brisket and ribs and all that stuff.
Okay, I do kind of miss it. I miss it a little bit. It's okay. I like animals. What can I tell you? All right. Well,
thanks. Way to go there.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, this will be our last podcast for the month, obviously, but we will be back. You are gone this weekend, correct?
Correct. I think the weekend after. Rankings talk, wrap up the season.
The weekend after, maybe. I've got family in town, so it might be. It might be a midweek next week as well, because I've got the house to myself for 3 days.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah.
So maybe we'll go midweek next week, just completely ignoring what we said they were going to try and start doing these on Mondays.
Well, no, it's going to be tough, though, because in September I'm traveling actually a lot of weekends, too.
All right, lovely.
So, because we're going to have Instructs trip, I've got Dallas, I've got,
Maybe I can talk to you from Instructs.
Maybe we could do that. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll be back in your eardrums at some point next week with some rankings talk.
Your eardrums. For
Ian. That?
I'm Chris. Thanks, everyone. Our $5 patrons, we will, as always, want to thank them. Of course, I get to the site now. It's not loading. Come on, Patreon. You can do it. It's not loading.
Here, I've got it. Our $5... Oh, wait. Actually, I'm not sure I can see it.